So, my grandmother, Virginia Hubbard, that's her. She's here tonight, and she does not know that I'm talking about her. And I'm going to get you. I was waiting for that. She is quite possibly the strongest and most amazing woman that I've had the pleasure of knowing. And I've learned more from her in my conversations with her. I don't know that she knows that. She has experienced in her lifetime tremendous love and loss, and she has somehow, through all of that, maintained her strength and her humor. And one of the ways that my grandmother shows love is through food. She's very generous and very loving and very kind. And she takes care of people that she loves, and she shows that through food. Growing up, she raised 6 kids, right? So she raised 6 of her own children. And then growing up, 5 of us grandkids spent every day, literally, with my grandmother while our parents were at work, so before and after school and on during the summer. And, she's raised 6 kids. However, the 5 of us, there was a 3-year age gap between me, the oldest, and the youngest. So imagine 5 kids under the age of 5 all at the same time. Right. There were days that she loved us, and there were days that we were lucky to leave alive. During that time, we would have family come in town to Battle Creek, and we would spend time with them. And we always, always, always ate, every time. And my favorite meal, and it's still my favorite to this day, is my grandmother's fried catfish. Yeah. And you have not had catfish until you've had Virginia's catfish. It is like this perfect seasoned golden brown on the outside and just that buttery, flaky, rich, fish on the inside with white bread and hot sauce. And that's how I grew up eating catfish. And so we would go to my grandmother's house, and she had a large wooden dining room table. And we kids would play, and the adults would talk about each other to each other. And they would play cards. And there were a lot of things that were being said that I won't repeat to you tonight. And there was a lot of laughter and love, but there was always catfish, always. And I remember growing up in that environment, and I remember her lace curtains and her brightly colored flowered wallpaper and her long wooden table and all of the catfish I could eat. And during that time, for me, catfish was not just catfish, it was an escape. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned that catfish was the bottom feeder. And there was a TV show about it, right? And when I first learned that as an adult, I thought, well, y'all ain't had Virginia's catfish if you think it's the bottom feeder fish. So for me, it was a time where I was with people who I belonged to, and it was a time where I mattered. It was a time where I was important, and the trials and the difficulties of my elementary school world were set to aside, and I escaped for that time period with my family and laughing with them and spending time with my cousins. So catfish to me was an escape. So this last summer, we had family come in town again, and I remember we were all at my dining room table, and we were sitting around my wooden table, and we were all talking about each other to each other. And there was this moment where, they don't know it, but the whole world for me kind of stopped. And I recognized the fact that somehow a rite of passage had happened. And we were now at my table. And I felt the weight of the honor of that, right? That place, like, I'm an adult now. Like, I'm 35, but I'm finally an adult, right? And they're all at my table. But in the same breath, I felt this nostalgic, bittersweet sense of loss because some of the storytellers that I grew up with are no longer at the table. And I missed some of those stories that I normally heard at that table. And on top of that, I recognized the fact that we were not eating catfish because I don't know how to make catfish. And out of all the things I've asked my grandmother about her recipes on the slide, when I ask her, so, Grandma, how do you make your sweet potato pie? And how do you make your greens? I have never asked her how she makes her catfish. And I thought, if that's my favorite meal, how have I not learned? And I realized that there are two reasons. For me, in growing up, when I did, and the escape that it provided for me, I could only imagine that time with family, what that escape provided for her. Because she's seen a lot. She watched segregation. She watched the civil rights movement. She watched Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. She's watched all of this. And she's experienced loss that has been tremendous, but it's not broken her. And I can only imagine what kind of escape that's provided for her. So one, I don't feel like I've earned the right to make her catfish. And two, because I recognize that if I'm making catfish, it's because she's not here to do it, and I am not ready for that rite of passage.